Kufnan Dalet Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top at the 2 dots. When he reaches the outer courtyard, so the Mishnah said that if he cannot give the kiss, he's traveling and comes Shabbos, he's traveling, he cannot give his kiss to a Nachri, the animal carries it, the donkey carries it, they come to the Chatzar Chitzayna, those items that are not muksa he removes. If there are items that are muksa, you cannot remove them, he unties the ropes and they fall to the ground. Ravuna says, he says, if what the animal was carrying was klis chuchis, was glassware. So he says, maybe karmic sauces, he brings cushions and pillows, puts it underneath it, and then he unties the ropes, and then the sacks fall onto the cushions. Frank, the Mora, what do you mean? Why does he have to do that? Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, the Mishnah said that those items which are not muksa can be taken directly. Now, glassware is not muksa, so why does he have to untie it and let it fall to the ground? More answers, what he was talking about was the glass tubes that were used by the bloodletters for Hakazas Adam. So the blood was now in these glass containers, and therefore they became disgusting. So therefore he holds it's muksa machmas miyos. And as the Meforshim speak out, that either he holds muksa machmas miyos is muksa, is aser, and l'cher he would hold that even l'serach makaima it would be aser. Or alternatively they speak out that this case by the bloodletters, is so amos, it's so disgusting that people would distance themselves from it, people wouldn't want to touch it, that everybody would hold in this case that it is considered to be muksa. Al-Kopanim is talking about kelim which are muksa, and therefore it falls into the category of the Mishnah of a muksa kelim that he unties the ropes and they fall. But here it's glassware. If it falls to the ground, it'll break. So Rav Huna gave the eitzah of putting cushions and pillows there, so it falls on the cushions and it doesn't break. Frag the Gemara, but still, how can he do this? He's mevata kli me'echana. If the muksa item is now on the cushion, now he can't move the cushion, and that's mevata kli me'echana, which is also midrabbanan. So there's 2 reasons given, Rashi in 2 different places. One place he says boina, he says it's considered like you've cemented into the ground. Now that you can't move the cushion, it's considered like it's now fixed in its place. It's like boina. Alternatively, it says that it's seiser. It's considered nullifying it. It can't be used. Now it can't be used anymore. Can't be used, so you're seiser. So how do you have this eight of having it fall on the cushions? We're talking about where these are not large sacks of the glassware, they're small ones. So therefore the intent is you'd have a pile of pillows, it would fall on one, he would slip out the pillow from underneath it, it would fall on the other one, he would slip out the other one, it would fall until eventually it now is on the ground. Meaning that it's not considered mevat kli me'echana unless the intent is that it should be there for the rest of the Shabbos. Now since over here he can slip out the cushions from underneath the glassware, his intent is not to have it staying there the entire Shabbos. Only the intent is to have it there on a very temporary basis. He can easily slip out the pillow, so it's not mevad kli me'echana. Therefore, it does not over here become a bosses. It's not mevad kli me'echana, and therefore it's talking about something which is muksa, but he unties it and lets it fall onto the cushions in this manner, and therefore he does not have to be metaltal it. If the animal was loaded up with tevel, so the person was not mafresh the trumas and meiser, so tevel, it can't be eaten. This can't be, and so it has no use for it on Shabbos. He can't be mafresh on Shabbos the trumas and meiser. It's muksa. So he has these these sacks of teva vashoshes or glass bars, mater sechavolim asakim neiflim. Then he unties the sacks, and they unties the ropes rather, and the sacks fall to the ground. And even though the glass is now going to fall on the ground, and it's going to break, and he's going to break this way. So why doesn't he have this eitzah of Rav Huna? If this is an eitzah, why not use the cushions? The Gemara answers, Hasam bekulsam. Where they were talking about where they're pieces of glass, they're heavy pieces of glass, they're glass slabs. So over there, they can't put it on and have them fall on the cushions because they're too heavy to have them roll off the cushions. So there would be a problem of being mevatel kli me'echana. So therefore, we don't have this eitzah of Rav Huna because it will be there for the entire Shabbos, and the cushions will not be able to be moved. There'll be an isser, it's mevatel kli me'echana. So therefore, you have to untie it, and it falls to the ground. Dekanami, Diktani, and it's meduyik that we're talking in such a case because it's similar to Dumya de Tevel, to the case that it talks about is there's Tevel and there's the glass. Ma Tevel de Lechazile, just like Tevel. It can't be used on Shabbos, it's muksa and it can't be used on Shabbos. Hafachanami, Lechazile, we're talking about something which can't be used on Shabbos. Now the glass, pieces of glass, they're not kalim. They take the glass and make it into windows, things of that nature. So these things are muksa on Shabbos. Umay afal pisha mishtabrim, and what does it mean to say that you let it fall to the ground even though it breaks? Meaning, it would seem to imply that the financial loss, there's a reason that I would think that since there's a hefsed, there's a financial loss, you would be allowed to put it on cushions, that you wouldn't have to have it fall to the ground. But if we're talking about pieces of glass that slabs are going to be cut up and anyways used to make windows, etc., so there really isn't a financial loss. They're going to be broken anyway. Gemara says, no. You might think that even though there's not a significant loss, because they're going to be cut up, these pieces of slabs are going to be cut into pieces anyway, but there is a minor hefsed over here. There is a hefsed muat over here. When it falls to the ground, so there'll be chips that fall. There might be pieces that are broken that are not used, small pieces that are broken that won't be able to be used properly for windows. So there is a hefsed muat. So you might think that if I say that you have to untie the sacks, they fall to the ground, or untie the slabs and it falls to the ground, there would be a hefsed muat. I might think that should allow me to have it fall on cushions, even though it is mevatel kli me'echana. Kamash malan, that we don't say that. That even though there is a hefsed muat, even though there is somewhat of a loss of money over here, nevertheless, we do not allow you to have it fall on the cushions. There is the isser of mevatel kli me'echana is in place, and therefore you have to allow it to fall to the ground, even though there is a hefsed muat. So the Magen Avraham is medayik from this, which is mashma. Therefore, if there would be a hefsed meruba, in a case where there's a hefsed meruba, ein achanami, we would waive the Yisr Mevatel Kli Me'echana, and we would allow you to have it fall on the cushions. It's mashma, he learns, that it's only because over here in this case there's a hefsed mu'ah, but if there would be a hefsed meruba in a chanami, we would allow you to have it rest on the cushions, even though it is Mevatel Kli Me'echana. Tanya Rabbi Shimon Yochai Yomer, if a person had a sack of tuah, which was not gemeiser, so it's tevel, so it's muksa, so he can't take the sacks off of the animal directly. What does he do? He has an eitz as follows: Meniach roisha tachtah, he puts his head underneath it, and masalkal tzad echad, and he pushes it over to the other side with his head, v'hu noifel me'elav, and it falls on its own. So therefore, he's allowed to be metaltel the muksa in this indirect way with his body. He's allowed to be metaltel the muksa with his body, and that way he can remove it from the animal. His donkey was laden with honey. And he didn't want to unload it until Motzei Shabbos. And but what happened is Motzei Shabbos Mesa, it was resting on the animal the entire Shabbos, and then by the time Motzei Shabbos came by, it died. Fragt the Gemara, why did he do that? The Mishnah says that which is not muksa, you can remove it, and l'chayra honey is not muksa. Gemara answers, the case we're talking about where the honey turns sour, and therefore it was considered muksa. Hidvish l'may chalze. What was he doing with it? Why was he transporting sour honey? What is the purpose of this? L'ksisa de gamla. This is used for sores. If an animal has sores on its back from carrying loads, so they use it to soothe the sores. So that was the purpose. Now that cannot be done on Shabbos. So it has a purpose, but not a Shabbos-tic purpose. It was muksa. So the honey was muksa. He didn't want to remove it from the animal, and therefore Motzei Shabbos it died. Why not? The Mishnah says that you can untie the sacks and fall to the ground. So more answers, mitzvah ziki. If he would have done that, the sacks would split open and the honey would get ruined. So he didn't want to have the honey get ruined, so he left it there. Why didn't he have the Eitzah of Rav Huna that have it fall on pillows and cushions? More answers, mitzvah. It'll get dirty and it will dirty the pillows, and therefore and therefore he can't use it for the rest of the Shabbos. It's all dirty. It's filled. It's covered with honey, and that would be a problem of vata kli me'achona. But leaving it on the animals, it's sar balei chayim. So and l'chera, that's an iser deraisa, and therefore that should outweigh the iser of mevata kli me'achana, which is a drabanan. So why wasn't that mevatel that iser? How can he let the animal suffer the whole Shabbos? This is deraisa. Sava Rabbi Gamliel holds that sar balei chayim derabanan. He holds that that's an iser derabanan, and therefore it does not outweigh the iser of being mevata kli me'achana. So the Ran points out that when we said before, when we started the sugya and we talked about the kli zchukias, and we said that the Rav Huna was case was with the karne de umna, that it's karne de umna are muksa, and he said that it can fall on the pillows, and it's not a problem of kli me'achana because we're talking about where there's small sacks. So we can roll one from the other, which is mashma that if they were large sacks, that you could not have it roll from one cushion to another cushion, that it would be also because of mevat kli me'achana. So you would not be able to untie it and have it fall onto the cushions, which is mashma. Then you would leave it on the animal. What about sar balei chayim? What about sar balei chayim? So we're talking in that case where they're not so large, what they use for the bloodletting, the kalim, the glassware that was used for the bloodletting, the sacks, even the larger sacks, were not that heavy that it would cause a tsar to the animal, that it would endanger the animal. But over here, we're talking about cases over here where they were very heavy, and it did cause that type of a tsar, and in fact, this case over here, the animal did die. Avai encountered Rabba. He was playing with his son, and he used the side of the animal as a slide, and had his son slide down the side of the animal. Amar lei, he said to him, the animal is muksa, you're using the animal, you're mishtamish with the animal. How are you allowed to do this? Amar lei, he said, it's not only goes to Rabbanan. They were not geyser on the sides. You can't use the top of the animal, the back of the animal, but the sides of it, they weren't geyser on a davar muksa, they weren't geyser on the sides. Menatema, where do we see this? It's not matach havalim asakim neifla. It says in the Mishnah that you untie the sacks and they fall to the ground. My love, bechave gevalki. aren't we talking to in a case where the animal is laden with these sacks and they're tied to the saddlebag, and in order to untie it, he has to lean against the animal, and in order to untie it, he has to get close to it and lean on the animal in order to untie it. So you see, he's using the sides of the animal, and you see that it's mutter. So don't you see from here it's starim legazer? The Gemara says no. You have no raya because loy becheva agvalki. We can be talking about not that they were tied and that you had to press against the animal to untie it. It was held together with a clasp. So you can easily remove the pin and it falls, and you can do that without being close to the animal, without leaning on the animal. Do they have it stunned, and you're not using the sides at all? Iname belechta, or with a clip. And same idea, that it's with a wooden clip, and you can easily remove it from a distance without leaning on the animal. Esvei, Abaye asks Akash, the Rabbi, you're saying in a davar muksa that Sdadim is mutter in a davar muksa. Shtein b'dei Adam v'achas b'ilan. If in a sukkah, you had two walls of the sukkah were man-made, and the third wall was used a tree for it. Use a tree for that wall. Ksheira vein oilam lo b'yontiv. It's kosher. It's a kosher sukkah. The wall could be, you could use a tree as a wall, as one of the walls, but ain't oilam lo b'yontiv. But you can't use it on yontiv. Why is that? Because the schach is resting on, presumably the schach is resting on the tree. Now the tree is muksa. A tree is muksa. The schach is resting on the tree. In those days, then they used to store things, put things on the roof, and they would put things on the schach. Now if you have the schach resting on the tree, then you're now using the tree. So, therefore, it comes out that you're using the davar muksa. Now, what is the case over here? My lav dechak bebilan. Aren't we talking where how did you form this wall? A tree, normally a trunk is not wide enough to use as a wall. So how did you form this wall from the tree? Aren't we talking in a case where you drilled holes into the tree, and you put boards, and then you attached boards to it, so you have a wall through the boards. The boards are being supported by the tree. Now, you have the schach that's resting on the board, but you're not using, it's not resting on the tree, it's only resting on the board, which is leaning or is attached to the side of the tree. So, l'chayra, that's tzdadim. It seems to be that this is a case of tzdadim. And nevertheless, it says, ve'ein oil lo b'yontiv. You can't use the sukkah on yontiv because we're afraid that you're going to now put things on the schach, which is using the tree, but you're only using the side of the tree. Doesn't that show you that tzdadim are also? Just as a side point, when it says, ein oilim lo b'yontiv, why does it use that expression of oilim, of using a sukkah, going into sukkah oilim? Because Rashi explains that they used to build their sukkahs on the rooftops. So oilim, they have to climb up to it. So al kol panim, don't you see over here that you can't use it, and it's also the havel tzdadim, v'stadim asurim. And doesn't that show you that even the sides, using the side of the tree is also asur, it's muksa and it's asur? More answers loy, the kaifil ilan of anach asikuch alavei. The mishtamish be'ilan. We're not talking where he used the sides of it, we're talking where he bent over two trees, he bent it over into the ground, and that formed by bending over the branches of the trees, by bending it over, that formed the wall. He took two trees with a lot of branches and foliage, he bent it over, and now that formed the wall. And now the schach is on top of the tree. So it's not that tzdadim, it's on the top. He's using the tree itself, not just the sides of the tree. If that's the case, well, the Sefer says, if you have four walls in the sukkah, three are man-made, and the fourth wall is made up from the tree, that's a kosher sukkah, and you can use it on Yontif. Now, and if you're telling me the cases as you mentioned, and you bent over the trees, Amay Olam Yontif, you're using Saif Kol Saif, even though it's only the fourth wall, but the schach is resting on the tree. You're using a davar muksa. So why are you allowed to use that on going to the sukkah on Yontif? Why aren't we afraid that you're going to put things on the schach which is resting on the tree and you're mishtamish be'ilan? Frankly, Marvel Elamai, what are you going to say? It's Tonma Asurim Elamai. What are you going to say? The cases, as you had suggested, that he's only using the sides of the tree, that he drilled holes into the side of the tree and attached boards, and it's only Stonim, but Stonim are Asurim. The Saif and Mayu and Labiyontav. Even according to you, why is it Mutra on Yontav? You say it's Stonim are also. So still, how can you use the sukkah on Yontav? Elahasa Begvaza Parasichna. But you must say that the fourth wall was not talking in the case where you bent the tree over. It's talking where it happened to be a tree that was very thick and it had a lot of branches, and it was wide enough to be used as a wall. And the schach is not resting on that wall. The tree is just a wall. The schach is resting on the other three walls. And over here, happens to be that the fourth wall there was a tree which was very thick and had a lot of foliage, and therefore it was used as a fourth wall, but the schach wasn't resting on it. The economic dicton is call ilu sheyanot halilam yichol lamayid oil beyond shmam. It says the rule is if you remove the tree, the schach would still rest on the other walls. You can use them on Yontiv. It's not considered like the schach is resting on the davar muksa. It's not considered like you're using the davar muksa. So therefore, we're talking in a case where the schach is being supported by the other three walls, and in this case, it's mutter. You can go into Beyontiv because it's not resting on the davar muksa. So it really has no bearing on our case. We're talking over here that the schach is not resting, not on the sides, nor on the top of it. It's the schach is resting on the other three walls, and the fourth wall, which is a tree, is just a wall without supporting the schach. Rashi Vavorans, the obvious question, well, if that's the case, why do we have to change the case and say it's talking where it's because a parsichna, that it's a thick tree, thick foliage? If the schach is not resting on the tree, you can say the cases as we mentioned before. Rashi answers that you don't have to change the case. It's just very unlikely that the person would bother to bend over the branches or to make this whole construction for the fourth wall if the schach is not resting on it anyway, and if the sukkah is kosher anyway without it. So it just gives the more likely scenario that it happened to be, why does he have this fourth wall? It happened to be that the tree with thick foliage was there, and therefore he availed himself of this tree with the thick foliage, and he built the other three walls around it and have that used as a fourth wall. But in Hanami, it's not essential to the Gemara's teretz. The basic teretz is that he's not using the tree. His schach is resting on the other three walls. Lemika tanoi, whether it's started maros or not, let's say it's a machlekes tanoi. Because we learned, the Brisa says, Ein oil lo biyont. You're not allowed to go into the sukkah yont. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Aimer Mishum Rabbi Meir, oil lo biyont. He says you're allowed to go into it on yont. My la ba'aka miflagi, the marsav it's not nasurim, marsav mutorim. Is this not the machlekes whether it's not a marasar or mutar? So l'cher, it's a machlekes tanoim. Amarei Abai says no, that's not shad. It's not a machlekes whether it's not a marasar or mutar. The Kuliyam Ston Asur, Abai says, really, I'll tell you that everyone holds Stonim are also. The sides of the Davar Muks are also. What's the machlekes in the Brisa? V'hacha b'tzidet Stonim kamiflagei. This case by the Sukkah is not really Stonim, it's tzidet Stonim. The schach, is resting on the board. So he's learning that the case is talking where you drilled holes in the tree, you attached boards to it, the board is resting on the tree, the schach is resting on the board. So what are you using from the tree? The schach is resting on the board, and the board is attached to the side of the tree. So it's not even Snodim, it's Tzidei Tzodim, it's the size of the side. The schach is really resting on the board, not on the tree. And the board is being supported by the side of the tree. So that's Tzidei Tzodim, and that's the machlokes. Really, he'll tell you, Kuli Alma Tzedon Nasurim, V'hocha B'Tzidei Tzodim Kam Miflagi, Mar Savar Tzidei Tzodim Asurim, Umar Savar Tzidei Tzodim Mutarim. And that's the machlokes. But Abai holds by Tzodim, it's also.